Victoria Ashford, 23, strides into court with the confidence of someone who believes the rules don't quite apply to her. Before anyone can speak, she sighs loudly and says, "Can we move this along? I have a lunch reservation." She doesn't wait for a reply. One leg crosses over the other, her phone glowing in her hand as she scrolls like she's waiting for her order in a cafe instead of facing a judge. Judge Frank Caprio sets his pen down with quiet finality. "Miss Ashford, this is a courtroom. Put the phone away and respond to the charges." She barely glances up. "I'm here. Isn't that enough?" Her lawyer, David R. Hale, jumps in quickly, hoping to smooth the moment. "Your Honor, my client is prepared to pay all fines and settle everything today." Caprio's voice remains calm but unavoidable. "Mr. Hale, sit down. This court does not operate like an online payment screen." The weight behind the sentence freezes the room for a moment, and Hale slowly lowers himself back into his seat. Caprio taps his pen once, signaling the next step. "Officer Dantes, is the bodycam audio ready?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. Let's proceed." The clerk steps up and announces the case, docket 24 to 10,847, Commonwealth versus Victoria Marie Ashford. The charges follow: unauthorized use of a disabled and van-accessible parking space, destroying a citation, failing to appear for 3 summons, and contempt for ignoring a previous warning. The citation originated from Officer Leo Romano at 9:42 a.m. that Wednesday. Judge Caprio folds his hands. "Miss Ashford, did you receive the 3 summons mailed to your home?" "My assistant handles the mail," she replies, brushing off the question. "That wasn't what I asked. Did you receive them?" "I suppose." The clerk steps in. "Your Honor, all 3 certified notices were signed for at the defendant's address." Caprio flips a page in the file. "There's also mention of an earlier incident. 14 months ago you blocked a loading zone at Brown University during a delivery. Not a criminal matter, but relevant context." Victoria shrugs casually. "I don't remember. Probably nothing." "The report says you told the attendant that your family donated the library," Caprio replies. Again, not part of today's charges, but it does help illustrate a pattern. Her attorney tries to regain ground. "Your Honor, my client understands she could have handled things differently. She's ready to pay whatever the court requires and resolve this." Caprio shakes his head. "Writing a check doesn't always teach accountability. I need to understand your actions. Miss Ashford, describe what happened Wednesday morning." Victoria exhales, irritation seeping through every word. "I parked in front of a pharmacy on Hope Street. I was inside for maybe 10 minutes. When I came back, a ticket was on my windshield. I tore it up because I didn't think it was valid." "You parked in a space reserved for disabled access and vans requiring ramp clearance," Caprio states. "It was empty," she answers quickly. "Nobody was using it." "That's not the issue," Caprio replies. "You parked in a clearly marked accessibility zone with hash-striped loading area. That alone is the violation." "Yes, but no one was there, so I don't see the problem." Caprio opens a written statement. "Let me read something submitted by Laura Bennett, a mother who arrived at the pharmacy at 9:51 a.m. The ramp could not deploy. My daughter missed her therapy appointment." Victoria flicks her hand dismissively. "That's not on me. She could have parked somewhere else." Her attorney objects carefully. "Your Honor, I believe these emotional details may not be directly relevant to the citation. Access to that parking space is the central issue here, not emotion. Miss Bennett's daughter relies on a wheelchair, and because your client blocked the only van-accessible spot, she could not enter the building at all. That is not a matter of feelings. It is a direct, measurable consequence." Judge Caprio then shifts his attention toward the officer along the side wall. "Officer Romano, please read your report into the record." Officer Leo Romano steps forward with steady professionalism. His voice is even, almost methodical, as he recounts the events. "At 9:42 a.m., I observed a silver luxury sedan occupying a van-accessible parking space outside Hope Street Pharmacy. The location had standard signage and clearly marked diagonal access stripes. The vehicle displayed no disabled placard or designated license plate. I issued a citation and placed it on the windshield." He continues, maintaining the same calm tone. At approximately 9:53 a.m., I saw the driver, later identified as Victoria Ashford, leave the pharmacy, remove the citation, tear it in half, and drop it onto the sidewalk. I approached to explain the violation. She responded, "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" When I informed her the citation was valid, she said, "Then write another one. My family funds this city." Judge Caprio pauses for a beat, letting the room absorb the statement. Officer Romano, did you interpret that remark as an attempt to influence or intimidate you? "Yes, Your Honor," the officer replies without hesitation. Victoria leans forward defensively. "It was sarcasm. I was frustrated." Caprio lifts a hand. "Let's allow the record to speak for itself. Officer Dantes, please play the body camera audio, only the portion containing the exchange." A short burst of static fills the courtroom. Then, clear as day, Victoria's voice plays, "My family funds this city." No tone of humor. No hint of irony. Just blunt entitlement. The judge lets the silence sink in before speaking. "Miss Ashford, your father is Marcus Ashford, the founder of Ashford Innovations, correct?" "Yes," she answers tightly. "And your family has made substantial philanthropic donations to the city of Providence, including contributions towards several municipal improvements." "Yes," she replies again, less confident. "So tell the court, when you said, 'My family funds this city,' what message were you intending to send?" "I meant we support the community," she insists. Caprio turns back to the officer. "Officer Romano, how did you interpret that statement?" "As an attempt to assert influence, Your Honor, an implication that issuing a citation could have consequences," he says plainly. Caprio nods once. "Sarcasm doesn't create accessibility, Miss Ashford. And it certainly doesn't make wheelchair ramps lower themselves." He then directs his attention to the clerk. "Miss Reyes, were there any communications with this court regarding this case before today's hearing?" The clerk flips through a series of logs and correspondence entries, scanning for any relevant contact. "Yes, Your Honor," the clerk responds, flipping through her notes. "We received 2 incoming calls and 1 voicemail, all from a number registered to Ashford Innovations Donor Relations Department. The timestamps are as follows: first call at 10:18 a.m., second at 10:47 a.m., and a voicemail at 11:12 a.m. Additionally, an email arrived from a civic philanthropy liaison at 10:52 a.m., referencing the possibility of a discrete resolution." Caprio gestures toward the clerk. "Please read the email into the record." The clerk clears her throat. Subject: Case 24 to 10,847 Resolution. Body: We understand a citation was issued this morning to a member of the Ashford family. In light of the family's long-standing support for municipal initiatives, we would like to explore options to resolve this matter quietly and efficiently before it proceeds further. Please contact us at your earliest convenience. David Hale rises, trying to intervene. "Your Honor, my client cannot be held responsible for communications from her family's foundation. These messages are irrelevant to the matter at hand." Caprio's expression remains firm. Overruled. Any external pressures that are logged and timed in connection with this case are relevant. I am not alleging criminal intent. This is strictly a matter of recording events factually. Victoria shifts uncomfortably in her seat. "I didn't ask them to call," she mutters. "Perhaps not," Caprio responds, "but someone clearly believed this approach would be beneficial. Let's establish a timeline to provide context." Citation issued at 9:42 a.m. First call from Ashford Innovations, 10:18 a.m. The proximity and sequence matter. Documenting these interactions helps illustrate any attempts to influence or expedite outcomes. That's a span of just 36 minutes between the citation and the email. Someone acted quickly. Judge Caprio turns toward the clerk. "Is Miss Laura Bennett available to provide a brief statement?" "She is, Your Honor, by phone," the clerk replies. "Put her through," Caprio instructs. A calm but strained female voice comes through the speaker. "Thank you, Your Honor. My daughter has cerebral palsy and attends physical therapy twice a week. Wednesday was a critical session. We arrived at the pharmacy at 9:51 a.m. to pick up her medication before therapy. The van-accessible parking space was blocked, and I could not lower the side entry ramp. By the time we located another space and got inside, We had already missed the first 20 minutes of her session. The therapist had to reschedule. Caprio nods solemnly. Access is infrastructure, Miss Ashford. It's not optional. It's essential. Victoria mutters something under her breath, almost inaudible. The judge's gaze sharpens. Miss Ashford, if you have something to say, speak clearly for the record. I said it was only 10 minutes, she murmurs defensively. 10 minutes is a therapy window, Miss Ashford, Caprio responds firmly. Every minute counts for a child with special needs. Miss Bennett, thank you. Your statement is now on the record. The line clicks off. Caprio sets the phone down and picks up another document. Miss Reyes, these are the 3 summons notices mailed to Miss Ashford's residence. Can you confirm delivery? Yes, Your Honor, the clerk replies. The first notice was mailed October 2nd and signed for October 4th. The second notice went out October 16th, signed for October 18th. The final notice was mailed October 30th and signed for November 1st. All 3 were either signed by V. Ashford or Per V. Ashford. Victoria's jaw tightens visibly. My assistant signs for some things, but you knew about them, correct? I don't read every piece of mail, she says, her tone clipped, as if the entire process is beneath her. Miss Ashford, 3 certified notices sent over the span of 4 weeks. Judge Caprio begins, his tone even but firm. This isn't an oversight. It shows a pattern. David Hale rises again, this time more deliberate, trying to assert control. Your Honor, given the Ashford family's prominent role in municipal philanthropy, we request that the remainder of this hearing be handled off the public record. Public proceedings could complicate ongoing civic partnerships. Caprio shakes his head slightly, maintaining a calm, unwavering presence. Mr. Hale, transparency is the cornerstone of fairness. We will continue on the public record. He turns his steady gaze toward Victoria. Miss Ashford, I'm going to ask you 3 direct yes or no questions. Answer clearly. Did you park in a disabled and van-accessible space without proper authorization? Yes. Did you tear up the citation and discard it? Yes. Did you ignore 3 certified summons notices? Victoria hesitates. I didn't think they were serious. That is not a no, Caprio interjects. Did you ignore them? Yes, she admits. Victoria's voice rises, frustration spilling over. Your Honor, my family has donated millions to this city. We fund programs, we support infrastructure. Half your budget wouldn't exist without us. Caprio leans forward slightly, his tone calm but unyielding. Ms. Ashford, charitable donations do not grant exemptions from the law. Contributions to the community do not remove legal obligations or erase consequences. They should earn respect, Victoria insists, her voice rising. Do you know how much my father contributes to city operations? Your salary comes from taxpayers like us. David Hale jumps up, trying to regain control. Your Honor, my client is, but the words hang in the air, incomplete, suspended like a warning. 5, 7, 10, 12 seconds stretch into an eternity. In that moment, any illusion of authority money could buy has evaporated. The courtroom freezes. No one speaks. Victoria's eyes remain locked on the bench, realization slowly dawning that she has crossed a line. David Hale's face drains of color. Officer Romano stays motionless by the wall, silently observing. Finally, Judge Caprio speaks, his voice calm, measured, and absolute. Miss Ashford, you own nothing in this courtroom. Not the process, not the outcome, not me. He pauses, letting the word settle before delivering his findings. Here is my determination. The evidence supports all 4 charges. Officer Romano's narrative is credible, and it is corroborated by body camera footage, fixed camera photographs of the lot, the torn citation, 3 certified summons notices, and the timeline of calls and emails from the Ashford Foundation. Miss Ashford parked in a disabled and van-accessible space, denying access to a family with mobility needs. She destroyed a citation issued for that violation. And she ignored 3 summons notices over a period of 4 weeks. The judge leans back slightly, his gaze sweeping the courtroom. The evidence is clear, the law is clear, and the consequences are about to follow. She invoked her family's financial contributions in a way that Officer Romano reasonably interpreted as an attempt at intimidation. Caprio lets the words hang for a moment, allowing the courtroom to absorb the significance. This court does not adjudicate cases based on wealth, donations, or family foundation contacts. Borrowed money is not borrowed authority. Miss Ashford, your family's philanthropy does not give you ownership of public process. Status and privilege do not erase the consequences of your actions. Access to public resources is not for sale and cannot be auctioned. He turns a page deliberately, eyes still fixed on the defendant. I also note the prior advisory from campus parking enforcement. That advisory was instructional, not punitive. You were reminded once that loading zones exist for a reason. You chose not to internalize that lesson. Consequences exist to teach what privilege may have obscured. The judge begins detailing the penalties. The base fines in this matter total $750. Unauthorized use of a disabled accessible parking bay carries a fine of $300. Contempt for failure to appear carries a fine of $300. Caprio continues, his voice steady. Administrative fees total $150. Victoria exhales sharply, bracing herself. The judge raises a hand to pause her reaction. I am not finished. I am staying a portion of the total $400 contingent on your full and timely completion of a restorative accountability plan. Complete it, and that portion is waived. Fail to complete it, and it is reinstated. You will then pay the full amount. He flips through his notes and lays out the requirements clearly. First, written apologies must be made to Officer Leah Romano and Laura Bennett. These are not form letters drafted by your family's public relations team. They must be genuine, acknowledging exactly what you did and what you learned. Deliver them in person if both recipients agree. If either declines, mail them and the court will confirm receipt. Second, you will perform 150 hours of community service, split between two organizations. 75 hours at the Rhode Island Food Bank, and 75 hours with the Mobility Access Coalition assisting with accessibility audits and community outreach. Both organizations will submit attendance logs directly to the court. No press releases. No photo opportunities. Third, you will write and record 2 public service announcements for school distribution. Both must be vetted by the court. These will focus on access equity and the distinction between charitable contributions and entitlement. Fourth, you will complete a donor influence ethics module, covering the separation between philanthropy and public process. Certification of completion must be filed with the court. Fifth, submit a 900-word written reflection on the topic of money versus authority, in your own words. No slogans. No statements drafted by your communications team. This must be your honest assessment. Caprio sets his pen down. Mercy is not a discount. It is a contract. He continues, making recommendations for municipal court policy and administration. 1. Establish an ex-parte influence log for all cases. Any off-record communications, including those from donors or representatives, must be documented and published weekly. 2. Create a donor contact firewall with mandatory disclosure. Any case involving a defendant whose family has made significant municipal donations must be flagged, and all contacts from donor-related entities must be disclosed immediately. 3. Implement mandatory supervisor co-sign and recusal protocols. If any court staff member is contacted by a donor representative regarding a pending case, that staff member must either recuse themselves or obtain supervisor authorization before proceeding. 4. Caprio continues in his recommendations for municipal policy, develop a first-level escalation protocol for disabled accessible bays. Unauthorized vehicles in van-accessible spaces should trigger immediate tow procedures to prevent denial of access. 5. Create a municipal public service announcement series on access rights, featuring real testimony from families who rely on accessible infrastructure every day. 6. Establish a clerk hotline for reporting influence attempts. Any effort to leverage donations, connections, or wealth may be reported anonymously, and every report will be investigated thoroughly. This model is designed to protect the integrity of the system. Over the following 12 weeks, Victoria completes the accountability plan piece by piece. Week 1, she drafts the apology letters. The court rejects her first attempt, too polished, clearly written by someone else. She tries again, using her own words. Much better. Officer Romano agrees to a brief, necessary meeting at a nearby coffee shop. The conversation is awkward but essential. Romano tells her plainly, "When you said your family funds the city, it made me feel like my job was for sale. It's not." Laura Bennett accepts the written apology but declines an in-person meeting, emailing the court instead. "She named what she took from us. That's enough." Weeks 2 through 10. Victoria logs the required 150 hours across both organizations. At the Rhode Island Food Bank, she sorts donations, stocks shelves, and assists with distribution logistics. No press, no cameras. One volunteer coordinator reminds her, "Service isn't about who sees it, it's about what you do." At the Mobility Access Coalition, she helps with accessibility audits, learning how ramp angles, doorway widths, and other infrastructure standards are calculated. She schedules community outreach visits, hearing directly from wheelchair users that access is a right, not a favor. Week 9, she records her public service announcements. The first drafts are too corporate, too scripted. The court sends them back. She records them again, plainly. No branding, no family mentions, just her voice and the truth. The second versions pass. The donor influence ethics module takes 3 more weeks. She completes it without complaint. By the end of 12 weeks, the ledger is simple and clear. 150 hours of service logged, 2 PSAs approved, 1 ethics module completed, 1 firewall established, 1 entitlement lesson learned. Officer Romano testifies to the court. She showed up every time. That matters. 12 weeks after the initial hearing, Victoria returns to court. This time, she comes alone. No counsel, no family representative, no entourage. Caprio reviews all submitted documents, the apologies, service logs, PSA recordings, ethics module certificate, and her written reflection. "Miss Ashford," Caprio says, "I've read your reflection. I want you to summarize it in your own words. No script." Victoria stands, taking a deep breath. "I thought money meant access. I thought that because my family donated to programs, I could park wherever I wanted, ignore tickets, skip court dates. I thought we fund this meant I owned it. I didn't understand that public office isn't for sale, it's for service." She pauses, her voice steady but reflective. "When I told you I own you, I was wrong. I understand now. Public service is not about influence or entitlement, it's about accountability and fairness. And I am responsible for my actions. I don't own anything except my own choices," Victoria begins, her voice steady and reflective. "Money can build a library, but it can't buy my way out of blocking someone's ramp. I prevented Miss Bennett's daughter from accessing therapy. I told Officer Romano that her job was for sale. Both actions were wrong." Caprio nods, encouraging her to continue. "What did I learn from Officer Romano?" she asks. "That public servants don't work for my family's foundation. They serve the community, not individual donors. When I tried to use our donations as leverage, I was attempting to corrupt that service." And from the Mobility Access Coalition, Caprio prompts, "That accessible parking isn't about convenience, it's about precise calculations, ramp angles, clearance widths, transfer space. When I blocked that space for 10 minutes, I didn't just delay someone. I denied them access to medication. Time is infrastructure, and infrastructure is rights." Caprio signs a form and looks up. "You stopped trying to own the system and started learning to respect it. I am remitting $350 of the stayed portion. You still owe $400, which you will pay in installments over 6 months. The court will monitor your compliance." Victoria nods. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me," Caprio replies quietly. "Thank the people who taught you what I could not." 5 months later, the reforms begin to take hold. The court publishes its first ex-parte influence log. 3 donor-related contact attempts are recorded in the first month, all handled transparently under the new firewall protocols. Court staff report feeling protected and empowered by the disclosure requirements. The donor contact firewall is adopted across all municipal courts. Cases involving families with significant municipal donations are flagged automatically, and supervisor cosign protocols are implemented without incident. The Disabled Bay First Escalation policy is rolled out citywide. Average clearance time for unauthorized vehicles drops by 47%, and complaints from wheelchair users decline dramatically. The Municipal PSA series launches, featuring real testimony from families who rely on accessible infrastructure. Victoria's recordings are included and distributed to 31 schools. Not viral, not celebrated, but functional and meaningful. One parent emails the court, "My son watched the PSA about van accessible spaces and asked why people block them. We had a real conversation about access being a right, not a privilege. Thank you." On a quiet Friday afternoon, Caprio finishes his last case of the week. Before leaving, he writes a single principle on a note card and pins it to the bulletin board behind his bench. Public offices are not for sale. They are for service. He thinks of Victoria Ashford, of Officer Romano standing firm in a parking lot, of Laura Bennett's daughter waiting patiently in a van while therapy minutes ticked away. He turns off the light, locks the door, and walks away, leaving the courtroom and its lessons behind. This dramatization is crafted for storytelling and educational purposes, not as legal advice or official reporting.